Malcolm Louie here. Welcome to Eversprint.com. Today we're speaking with Stephen Sashen, the co-founder and CEO of Xero Shoes, a fast-growing manufacturer of addictively comfortable barefoot-inspired sandals and shoes. Stephen grew his company's revenue from $772,000 in 2014 to $5.5 million in 2017, a 617% increase, and they're projecting to hit $8.5 million in 2018. Welcome to the call, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Stephen, how did you do it? How did you grow your company's sales so fast?
I didn't do it. It was all the people who bought our shoes and sandals that did it. I was just on the other end of that equation.
Okay. So how do you get so many people to buy your shoes and sandals?
Oh, well, the first part is you make a really good product that people love to tell other people about, or that are interesting and eye-catching enough that people stop our customers on the street and go, ooh, where'd you get those? In fact, I just remembered when Lena and Lena's my wife and co-founder, when we first started doing this back in late November 2009, soon thereafter, we were walking in downtown Boulder, Colorado, where we lived, and a pack of teenage girls walked up to us and pointed at our sandals and went, oh, those are sick. And I turned to Lena and went, hey, we're billionaires. So I knew we were onto something. So part of it is just making a product that really does something valuable. In the case of footwear, that's really, really comfortable, that lets your feet bend and move and flex and feel and gives you a natural experience, which both feels good and is good for you. And then the second thing is finding out how to get in front of the kind of people who are right for your product. And that's the broadest scope of all of marketing and advertising, is just getting your message in front of the kind of people who are interested in what you're doing, or might be interested if you just kind of start the conversation in the right way.
Okay. Can you share how you created a product that people find really valuable? Did that come first, or did you get in front of the people first and figure out what they wanted and then created the product?
Yeah, it was product first. What happened is I was making these like simple little sandals based on this 10,000-year-old design idea for local barefoot runners and people who just like the idea of a really super comfortable, super minimalist thing to protect their foot when they were walking around in what felt like being barefoot, plus, again, a little protection. And they would tell two friends and they would tell two friends, and that just kind of happened very organically. And one day a local running coach said, I have this book that I'm writing about barefoot running, and if you treated this little sandal making hobby like a business and had a website, I would put you in the book. And so I had been an internet marketer since about 1992, and I built hundreds of websites. So I rush home and I pitch this idea to my wife, who tells me it is a really stupid idea and definitely won't work, won't make any money, total distraction from things we were doing, and insisted that I not build a website. And I said, you're probably right. And after she went to bed, I built a website. And so that was how it began. And then I just got involved in the conversations. Actually, I'd already been involved in the conversations with people who would be our potential customers. I was on forums and news groups and at that time Google groups. Facebook wasn't even really that popular at the time, but I was doing some things on Facebook as well, and blogs, wherever people were having conversations about natural movement and barefoot running, and the book Born to Run about the Tarahumara Indians who make sandals out of scraps of tire that they lace to their feet with leather laces, and they run for hundreds of miles pain-free well into their 60s, 70s, 80s. So put it all together, it was kind of product first and conversation that got in front of the right people second.
Right. Now, your shoes way back then when you first got started, are they functionally much different from how they are today?
Well, we still sell that product. That do-it-yourself kit is one of our better selling products. And when you use it, I say you get the superpower of knowing how to make your own footwear. And it really does feel like this incredibly empowering thing when you discover that something as important to us as protective footwear is not rocket science, or as they said 10,000 years ago, not rock science.
Rock science, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just really cool. And I've had people say, once I discovered I could make my own shoes, I started doing all these other things. I started repairing my own appliances. I started making my own food. It really just opens your eyes up to the possibility of what we can do that we've typically just jobbed out to big companies. So that's still a big part of our business. But what happened is that the business evolved from people telling us what they wanted us to do. So people would say, hey, I love what you're doing, but I'm not going to make my own sandals. And so we eventually came up with a ready-to-wear version of that product. They would say, well, I like that sandal, but it's got a thong between your toes. Even though it's not like a flip-flop and isn't uncomfortable like a flip-flop, there's still something between your toes, and I don't like that. So we came up with what's referred to as a sport sandal style or sport sandal? Yeah, good enough. Sport sandal style sandal. So I know that sounds kind of redundant, but basically it has webbing that goes across your foot instead of something between your toes. Then people would say, hey, that's great, but I work at a place where I need shoes. And so we came up with a shoe based on the same concept of letting your feet move naturally. And then,
Right.
well, I need this kind of shoe or that kind of shoe or this kind of sandal. And we keep expanding just based on what people have told us they're looking for, plus ideas that we've come up with that we know will work for our clientele.
Right. But for every single model, the basic premise is still there, right? Just a very thin layer of a very durable sole that moves with your foot and allows people to still feel what they're walking on.
Yeah, the basic idea is simple. Your feet are supposed to bend and move and flex and feel the world. And all of our products let them do all of those things better than anything else you can buy.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned the second key aspect, in addition to having a product that provides great value, and I know value is on different dimensions.
Yeah.
But you also talked about getting in front of the right people interested in what you do. How do you do that? How have you done that, and how will you do that going forward?
Well, there's a guy who I met 25 years ago who said, making money is simple. Figure out where the money is flowing and get in the way of it. And that's true regardless of where in that equation you're getting in the way. And so the biggest thing is that I did originally, as I mentioned before, is I just found the places that people were having these conversations, whether it was Facebook groups, forums, news groups, email lists, newsletters. I mean, just wherever I could find it. And it's fundamentally the same. I was doing SEO things way back then as well. So I was looking for the keywords that I thought people were searching for when they were looking for something similar to what we were doing, and built content that was designed to work well for people finding us, which worked. The only thing that's changed is really in the last almost 30 years of internet marketing is the way that you can target the people who are right for you and how often you can then follow up with them, whether they opt into a list that you have or not. So for example, retargeting, which is when everyone's experienced it probably, they might not know what it is. You visit a website and then you leave the website and then you visit some other site and see an ad from that first website. That's called retargeting. And so that didn't exist until not that long ago. And that's a very effective way to advertise because someone has already expressed interest in who you are and what you do, and you're just reminding them that you exist. So that's very helpful. But the gist is just look at every way you can possibly think of to see where people are possibly interested in what you're doing. At this point now, it's all social media: Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. It's no longer MySpace. So whatever channel shows up, there's an opportunity there. And then it's just a question of finding the right way to use it because each channel has its own little peculiarities and differences.
Right. What have you tried marketing-wise to reach out to your target market that's been a complete disaster that just didn't work?
That's a really good question. Oh, I'll tell you one. So I got approached by, I want to think of a broad way to say this. There are a lot of people who have what they think of as very impressive statistics behind what they're doing that are not as impressive as one would think or as it might seem. So for example, you see Facebook pages with, millions of followers, but there's no real engagement. No one's actually commenting or liking, or even more, you see that on Instagram or on Twitter, where it's people with, massive followings, but just not a whole lot of engagement, or all the engagement looks the same. And there's a concept that I refer to in internet marketing called faking natural. And once you know what normal, actual, real behavior looks like, there's often ways of faking that. So bot traffic is one. So computer programs that act like real people and make it look like something's happening when nothing's really happening. So here's a version of that that happened to me. Someone contacted me who's a well-known fitness personality, someone who I actually followed and liked. And this person loved our shoes and said, I've got a list of over 1 million email addresses. I've got over 1 million followers on every social channel. Let's do something. And I'm trying to think of how detailed I want to get in the story. They wanted me to give them a bunch of money to participate in a program they were doing with other big deal YouTube influencers. And I said, before I can spend that amount of money, I've got to know if there's a there. I've got to know if I can possibly get a positive return on my investment with you. And
Right.
what we negotiated was that they were going to post about us on other social channels and send an email to their list. And I was giving them a significant affiliate commission for any sale that they generated. They were going to get a nice commission. And I said, let's see how it goes. So they generated over 26,000 unique visitors to our website, and we made a whopping 20 sales. Now,
Fantastic.
yeah. Now, if that was just regular traffic coming to our site, we would have seen about 700 or 800 sales.
Yeah.
So I said to these guys, I don't know what you think your list is, but it seems like it's teenage boys from Bangladesh or something, because they don't care about us. And they had no idea and argued with me about it. They said, well, no, our list is really responsive. It's like, no, we just proved that it isn't. So whenever a variation on this is I get approached by people who want to send me traffic and I say, how am I paying for this? And they say, well, it's going to be, X number of, it's going to be cost per click or maybe cost per 1,000 impressions. And I say, yeah, I can't pay for clicks or impressions because that's way too easy to fake and way too hard to audit. And so therefore way too likely that I'll lose money by doing it. If you want to pay for acquisition, if you want to pay for commission based on sales, if we want to do something where we can see that this is for real first and then maybe move to one of those other pricing models, I'm open to that conversation. But I'm never going to do anything where there's a definite possibility that someone could fake natural, and they might not even know they're doing it. They might think they're doing everything on the up and up, but there are other companies who are exploiting them and sending crap traffic to them for various reasons, and they might not even know it. So it's challenging to do an internet marketing campaign where the people on the other end of the equation aren't as smart about internet marketing as they would need to be for that to be effective.
Right. Okay, well, I guess they're not going to go through that channel. So,
No.
So have they cashed the affiliate check you sent them for the 20 sales?
I was happy to give them the whopping whatever the hell it was. It was enough for a good dinner for a family of four.
Yeah, you asked them if you could send cash because it's too much trouble to write a check for that small amount.
I just wrapped a couple of $100 bills around a carrier pigeon. Be on the lookout.
Yeah. Okay. What's been your favorite channel, your number one channel? If you had to choose one marketing channel to get the word out, what would it be?
Ooh, what you just said in the question is a really interesting distinction. You said to get the word out. So there's two kinds of marketing, if you will. One is what we'll refer to as top of funnel, which is getting the word out to people who don't know you exist. And the other is bottom of funnel, which is people who've already found out about you and you just want to kind of stay on top of that conversation. For top of funnel, the most effective thing is video by a long shot. And it's something that we've done quite a bit of and I want to do more of. And that's been great fun. It just also just so happens I have a master's degree in film from Columbia University. I invented the industry standard word processing software for film and television writers. I was a professional stand-up comic and comedy writer. So that's my domain to begin with. When it comes to bottom of funnel, as I mentioned before, retargeting, by far the most effective thing we've ever done.
Great. So when you say videos, what do your videos look like?
Some are informational. So the first videos I made were how to basically rip off my entire company and just do everything that we're doing. I showed people how to make those sandals, where to get materials, how to do it yourself. I gave away the entire farm. It's what we often refer to as moving the free line. Things you would sell, make them free. So that was some of what I've done. And then I did some more entertaining stuff as well. The highlight was back in the days when there was a video meme that was the shit people say meme. So I did shit barefoot runners say. And then I did the follow-up shit runners say to barefoot runners. And the first one was my wife said to me, what are you going to be happy with based on what this does? I said, if we get 10,000 views, I'll be okay with that. So we got 1,000 the first day, 5,000 the second day, 20,000 the third day. And then we were on the homepage of Boing Boing and had 100,000 the day after that. And I think total has been seen about 750,000 times on different channels. And that's when I started paying a little more attention to doing things that are just flat out entertaining, but related to what we do. And I have a bajillion ideas for things I want to do in that regard that I just need more time and some cash to pull them off.
Right. So how are you tracking the views and figuring out which of those actually end up being a customer
Convert.
so that you can then
That's
figure out the ROI of your efforts.
Yeah, that's actually a really good and tricky question. One way you can, well, so there's two parts to that. One, can you track the views, and the other is how you track the sales from those views. So tracking the views, you have to rely on the metrics that the video hosting platforms give you. So you look at what YouTube says, you look at what Vimeo says. That's pretty much all you can do, unless you're hosting it on your own, and then whatever tool you're using for playing the videos will give you that information. If you're hosting it on your own, obviously, then that's the easiest way to know how those things convert, because you've got the traffic on your site. You can just watch where people go next, what they do after they've viewed the video. For things like YouTube, you can put a link in the description and code that link. So you can use, I'm going to get a little technical, you can use UTMs or affiliate links or link shorteners or various other things so you can track where the traffic is coming from. When someone picks up something like from Boing Boing, it's a slightly different situation because they don't have a product description. So to a certain extent, you're flying a little bit blind. But what you can do now, especially with YouTube, is you can track when someone has seen a video, they get cookied, and you can read that cookie later on your own site. And so you actually can track things through to the sale if you do it right.
Okay. So given how you're so enthusiastic about video marketing and you didn't mention it as a disaster early on, it sounds like it's turned out to be a positive ROI marketing program for you.
It's been very, very good to us.
Can you share what the ROI range is of your video marketing? Are you talking about hundreds of percent, tens of percent, thousands?
Well, it depends on how you measure percentages. I'll do it as multiples of ad spend. We're seeing anywhere between 4 and 12 times ad spend, depending on the video.
In terms of sales that are returned from.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great.
Now,
how much of your business is coming from new people buying your sandals for the first time versus people buying yet another sandal?
That is a great question, and I don't have the answer at my fingertips. I've got this really great spreadsheet that I keep about the number of people who have purchased multiple times and what percentage of our business they are. So I'll answer based on what I remember about that.
Okay.
So the top let me see if I can do this right. The top 18% of, the top 18%, okay, I can do this, I promise. 18% of our revenue is coming from the top 4% of our customers.
Okay.
Who on average are buying approximately 5 times. Now, we keep launching new products, so that number keeps bumping up, but that's the last time I looked. In fact, that was prior to the product launch that we just completed recently, so I'd have to run those numbers again.
This is 5 times lifetime or 5 times per year?
That's lifetime.
Okay.
And then the top over 30% of our revenue, not the top, 30% of our revenue is coming from the top 10% of our customers who are purchasing on average a little over 3.5 times. And then I think, I'm trying to remember the number of people who only purchase once. I think it's maybe between 15 and 20% maybe. But again, don't hold me on that because I'm not looking at the numbers.
Okay. Now, why do you think what's the difference between the people who only buy once and the ones who just love your product and have bought 5 pairs of your shoes?
That is a great question. And there's a whole bunch of people who claim that they can figure out the answer to that and then find more people like those people. But I have not experienced that is in fact true. In fact, that's one of the premises that Facebook has is they'll do a lookalike audience. They will take your data, find people just like fill in the blank, and then find more people like them. And it's not as effective as they think it should be or claim that it is. Same thing. Google's doing something similar, same problem. Quantcast does the same. There's lots of people who try and do the same, and they're not as effective as they think because there's a human being who's always making some decision about what characteristics you're looking for in that first group, in the cohort that is your customers, and then how to then match that with other people. And often those relationships don't hold up the way that one would think. It seems obvious that if I could identify things about you that make you special and you're one of my customers, if I could find people just like you, that would be perfect. But the reality is not as clean as that. So your question was what makes them different? I don't know is the best answer I can give you.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I can. I mean, I know what they've done. I know who they are, but what makes one different? Some of it's going to be people who just have a better or worse experience. And I can't predict that one per se. So you're never going to make everybody happy, just not possible. Sometimes it's because of you. Sometimes it's because of them. Sometimes it's because of things that have nothing to do with you or them. There are people who will never buy from us again because the U.S. Postal Service delayed getting a package sent to them. And
Right.
they're mad at me because of it. When you have a meal and then you end up with like a stomach flu later, and then even though the flu had nothing to do with the meal, it can take you years till you ever eat whatever that food was that you got sick.
Definitely.
Same thing. Human beings will make those causal connections when they aren't causal connections, and sometimes you are on the brunt end of that stick. That was a mixed metaphor if there ever was one.
Right.
You get lumped into things that have nothing to do with you.
Yeah, that's why I like buying from Amazon, right? Because the problems that I get shopping from Amazon, and when I say Amazon, ideally I buy from Amazon, the seller, not the third-party sellers who are on their platform, because I just find it's just nice to just not have the potential headache that you can get.
I'll tell you, being on this side, because we do sell through Amazon, it's one of the reasons people like us hate Amazon with a passion. Now, I'm selling through Amazon, but I don't know anybody who doesn't have very mixed feelings about selling through Amazon, in part because they are, how do I want to put it? People who buy on Amazon buy with less thinking than people who buy on your website, for example. And what that means is a much higher return or exchange rate if they don't follow instructions the way you've laid them out, if they're just not paying attention to the Amazon instructions. And Amazon, while they do have very specific return and exchange rules, they will accept things back regardless of whether you follow the rules. And that costs us a significant amount of money when people will wear shoes for a couple of months and then return them, even though the return policy for Amazon explicitly says new and unworn condition only.
Right. Yeah, I can see that happening. Now, why do you continue with Amazon given the headache that it gives you?
It is a 400-pound gorilla. They're getting, well, two things. They're getting a lot of traffic because of things just like what you said. And they also have an advertising platform that is very effective. So we're able to spend money and make significant returns on that ad spend.
So another question for you that's kind of similar to the one before. If you could only pick one distribution channel, Amazon, your own website, practically speaking, which one would you keep?
Practically speaking?
Yeah. I know you want to keep it all on your own website, but from a practical perspective, which one would you really keep? If you could only have one.
If I could only have one, I would still do my own website. No question.
Okay. How much more, how would you do the logistical side of things? Is that all done in-house as well, or have you outsourced that?
Right now we're doing it all in-house. We were working with a third-party logistics company, aka Fulfillment and Warehouse Center, for a while, and we outgrew. Well, we were with one, and they went out of business because their investors would not put in more money to support their growth. And then we moved to a second one who couldn't really support our growth. And then in the wake of that, we decided to open our own warehouse. And so we've been managing our own warehouse for almost a year now, actually.
Okay. So why are you opting for, why do you prefer your own business going through your own website, your own warehouse? Whereas my initial thoughts was you're going to say Amazon, because Amazon, you can scale it up a lot more easily, I would have imagined.
Control and cost. So we have way more control when we're doing it ourselves. And if things are out of whack, if something is mislabeled, or we want to inspect our product before we put it on the shelf. If somebody places an order and 5 minutes later they call saying, "Oh, wait, I gave you the wrong address," or whatever other crazy things you can think of, having the ability to be hands-on is worth the price of admission. And compared to Amazon, the cost of doing it ourselves is lower than if we were doing it through Amazon. There are some third-party facilities that we've been talking with that may be less expensive, and we're thinking of doing a little hybrid model where we use them for some things where we don't have to worry about those orders, and us for things where we have to give those orders a little more attention. Like backing up to our do-it-yourself sandal kit, there's no way we could do that with Amazon because people pick and choose a certain sole color, thickness, and size, and then they match that with a certain lace color. And if we made that for Amazon, we would have to pre-bundle every one of those, and it would be 5,000 different combinations.
Right.
No way we're going to do that.
Right. That's a lot of that's a lot of stuff to send.
Yeah.
So, okay. In regards to the future, what trends do you see unfolding in your space, and what are your plans to get in front of them if they're favorable, or avoid them if they are unfavorable?
Happily, they are very favorable. There's two in particular that I've been, in fact, just writing about today. One is the growth of what's referred to as the wellness economy. And that is, people are really concerned with their health and they want to take it into their own hands. They're not exactly sure what to do necessarily, but the growth in all these things related to health and wellness, from natural food to office workout spaces to meditation to, almost anything you can think of. That's something that's really important. And athleisure, people who are taking what they would normally wear to the gym or for a run, and that's their normal clothing. That's one of the biggest trends going on right now, and we are part of that. Simultaneous with that is just what I've been referring to as digital brand building 2.0. And digital brand building 1.0 was when people realized that you could go what's referred to as digitally native, vertically integrated. So if we think about companies like Casper or Bonobos or Warby Parker, these were companies that were disruptive because they decided to sell products that had typically only been sold in stores and just go to direct to consumers. They made the argument that they were giving you better prices because you were going factory direct. That's debatable in many circumstances. But regardless, that was the digitally native thing. What went along with that, though, was these companies were typically venture funded. They had a lot of money behind them. They were spending inordinate amounts of money to generate new customers, and they were often running with burn rate. They were often losing money every month. Their top line looked great, but they were losing money, and they were They were confident that the world was like totally digital. Everything's happening online. Well, there are other things as well, but those are some of the key points. Well, digital brand building 2.0 is when they've started to realize that they were wrong. So they've gone from online only to omni-channel. Some of these places are opening their own retail stores. Warby Parker is opening retail stores. Casper is opening retail. Casper has products in Target. Bonobos was in Nordstrom and didn't really start making money till they were in Nordstrom. So that's one change. Another change is the idea that you can run with a burn rate and just keep assuming that you can raise more money and eventually cash out. People are starting to get a little wary about that as well. The idea that you can lose lots of money on the front end because the most important thing is customers and getting those email addresses, not so much anymore. So that's another thing that is working to our favor because we bootstrapped our company. We've shown that we could grow the way we have without having any money behind us. And so now that we're actually looking to raise some growth capital, we can demonstrate that we know what we're doing. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the digital brand building 2.0 thing. Here we go. So let's see. The direct from factory pricing, that's been changing to making sure that there's enough margin, enough profit that you can actually support a wholesale channel. And there's this idea of, instead of just spending money to get new customers, the biggest thing that's been shifting is people are really trying to see what they can do to build an engaged and ideally evangelical tribe or community so that you have something. The real asset is your relationship, is the communication you have with your customers rather than just the ability to find another one at some excessive price.
Right. I kind of imagine for the folks, and I'm not your ideal customer. I've never bought your shoes, although I'm thinking about it.
That doesn't mean you're not my ideal customer. It just means you haven't bought them yet and discovered the experience of them. If you put these on and find that they're the most comfortable things you've ever worn, and you literally forget you're wearing them sometimes, you could become one of my ideal customers.
Right. Speaking of ideal customers, who are they in your opinion? How old are they? Where do they hang out? What kind of work do they do? What's important to them?
Well, my ideal customers are people with feet. And I don't care if they have two, frankly, just find a partner who's got the other one. And when I say that, I'm being only partly glib, partly because we know that footwear is something that almost everybody wears, everybody buys, not everywhere in the world, but there's a whole story about that too, where we might hope we can be helpful. But we know footwear is essentially ubiquitous. So there's a adoption curve for products that people know. There's like early adopters and late adopters, and it kind of goes from there. But at a certain point, you hit a place where you have a brand where everybody knows who you are and everybody is a potential customer. And there are very few products, very few verticals where that's possible. Footwear is one of them. And that's really our plan. I mean, in the same way people think that natural food is the obvious, better, healthy choice, we want people to realize that natural movement is the obvious, better, healthy choice. And we want to be the preeminent brand in the natural movement footwear world. So that's really our goal. Now, on the way to that, again, there's those different stages of business growth. And so right now, our customers typically are health and wellness-minded men and women between the ages, they max out between the ages of 25 and 45. That's where about 60% of them are. The other 40%, few that are younger, and then from 45 to 80. One day I said, we have a bunch of people who are like way older than that normal demographic. I mean, in their late 50s who are buying our stuff. And I went, Jesus, I'm 56. So I hadn't really thought of myself as old until I said that out loud.
Yeah.
I still don't, but nonetheless, it was like, ooh, that was a demographic wake-up call. So if you think like whole food shoppers, people who are interested in having fun, they have an active lifestyle, they're looking for something comfortable, they are willing to spend some money to get something that's a real valuable product that isn't going to fall apart in 2 days, that they want to have a relationship with a brand. Not just buy something and, say, wave their hand, wave goodbye and walk away. That's what we're currently seeing. They're a little overeducated, a little over-incomed, and that's evolving.
Okay. Now for those people who are, within that mold that you described, where can they buy your product?
Well, obviously at our website, which is Xero Shoes, XERO shoes.com. And as we've been discussing, Amazon as well. We're in about 150 stores around the world at the moment. That's growing by a few every week and looks like it's going to be accelerating, I hope. So you can go to our website and up at the upper right, there's a store locator. You can find places there as well. Any
big chains that people would know about?
We have avoided the big chains. We've been approached by a few, but when you're starting to deal with like department store level stuff, the terms that they require needs a financial management program, if you will, that is way beyond our means at the moment. So as an example, some of the big department stores will do things where they will buy your product, and at the end of the season, if they haven't sold it, they will not only insist that you buy it back, or even better, if they decide to blow it out at a discount, they will insist that you compensate them for the discount, and that you have to give them products at a discount for the next purchasing cycle. Otherwise, they won't buy from you. They really have you over a barrel is the thing that I'm trying to say.
Right.
And to manage that requires a large suitcase full of money to handle, whatever weird situation might occur based on, again, them having control over your brand and your product in a way that you don't. We're not there yet.
Right. I'm going to sneak in one more question. I noticed something that I don't think I've ever seen on any other footwear manufacturer. Your 5,000 mile sole guarantee. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So when we first started this and we were selling just our do-it-yourself sandal making kit, a couple of years in, people were saying, well, how long do these things last? And we would say, I don't know. No one's ever worn out a pair. And because we were inspired by the tire sandals made by the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico, I came up with the idea of having a warranty the same way tires have a warranty. My original thought was actually a 10,000 mile warranty, but I knew that if I said that, people would think that I was just completely full of it and lying, and they wouldn't believe it. So I came down to 5,000. And people are still, it kind of, pushes the edge of credulity, I will admit. But we have people who are wearing that original sandal kit from 8.5 years ago, and successfully doing that. Not everybody, which is why it's a warranty. If you wear out your soles, then we have a replacement program that you can use for taking care of that. Although what most people do is they go, look, I've been wearing these things for 3 years, and they're not even worn out yet, but let me just buy a new pair because they're really affordable. And we want to support you guys. So we're happy to honor our warranty. That's why we have it. It's only happened a handful of times. What happened also, what allowed this to happen is when we started manufacturing our own rubber, based on the experience we had with a third-party product, we said to our rubber manufacturer, here's the performance characteristics that we want. And the manufacturer said, yeah, but that's not how they make outsoles for shoes. We went, yeah, no joke. That's why we're going to do it that way. We're not interested in a product that wears out after 300 miles and it is built with planned obsolescence. That's not okay. Lena and I do a lot of things in our business based on what we would want if we were customers of our own business. And
Right.
one thing that we would want is an affordable price and a product that's durable. And
Yes.
that's, I guess, two things. And so those are two things that are very important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I bought some, fairly high quality hiking shoes, but we rarely worn them. And I really think the soles, literally the rubber was designed to only last 10 years because for both of our shoes, the rubber literally fell off the sole.
Yeah, well, and look, I will say this, making things is hard, making footwear is exceptionally hard. There's human beings that are involved. There's materials that are involved. If the temperature for the oven that they use to cure the glue is not at the right temperature, things can fall apart. I mean, it's really, really difficult, I will confess. And most shoes, aside from not being good for your feet in any way, is they have pointy toes that squeeze your toes together. They have stiff soles that don't let your foot bend and flex and move. They have flared soles, so it makes your foot hit the ground in an unnatural way. They elevate your heel. They have so much padding you can't feel anything. I mean, there's a number of things they do wrong. But the biggest one is because they have all that foam in the middle typically, and that foam is going to break down. What they do is they make the rubber so it breaks down around the same time the foam breaks down, because they think that, when the foam breaks down, the shoe is bad. And the reality in many cases is when the foam breaks down is when they're usually just getting good. So,
Right.
but the way they've designed it is they want the whole thing to sort of fall apart at the same time, and you go buy another.
Right.
And I think that's frankly just reprehensible.
It is. I mean, I kind of lost confidence in that brand that, when you can find them, they're a decent name and they're not inexpensive, but they're not going to be my first choice.
And look, again, making things is hard. We've had our own share of problems, and there are people who've been the receiving end of that and have the same experience you have about that brand, about us. And what we try to do is always make it right whenever we can, and knowing that, no one's perfect. We're just trying to do the best we can. And we're not a multi-billion-dollar brand. We're a small company doing the best we can. And we hope that we communicate that so that people are willing to work with us instead of just getting mad and storming off. One of my favorite emails, I got one today. It's a variation on that, where somebody emailed and said, I've tried all these other products and I spent thousands of dollars on them and I don't like them. So why don't you give me a pair of yours for free and I'll give you an honest review? It's like, wait, hold on. Did you just read that one? So that one's really sort of annoying. And the other one is when someone will have some problem and they'll post about it online, but they won't tag us, so we have no way of ever seeing it. And then they complain that we didn't respond to them contacting us. It's like, but you didn't contact us. You just complained first out in the ether, in the internet, no man's land. But if you had just called us, we would have fixed that problem or given you a solution that I'm sure you would have been happy with. And that just didn't happen. So it's an interesting thing that's happened in the wonderful world of the internet, is that where I think the default way of dealing with problems in the past was that you would call the company in question and ask questions like, hey, what's going on and how can we solve this? Instead of kind of what seems to be going on now is almost this assumption that people on our end of the equation are just out there to try and screw you. And
Right.
it couldn't be further from the truth. But people have just gotten really, I don't know what
Jaded.
I don't know if I'm not even sure if it's jaded. I don't know. I think there's a lack of civility that is just now permeating the e-commerce and retail landscape, where people are, another thing people do, and I'm just going to vent for a few moments. Another thing people do, I don't know why I'm doing it, but what the hell, is that, wait, how does it go? Oh, they'll call us, and if they have any problem whatsoever, again, even things that we had nothing to do with, things like U.S. Postal Service having a problem, and the screen is like, well, if you don't do what I say, I'm going to get on social media and tell people. Well,
Right.
we're happy to work with you, but I mean, threatening us is not really particularly helpful. And often when we try to help, people don't even realize that we're doing that. But this whole, I'm going to get on social media and tell people, it's gotten to the point now where I go, well, just send me a link. And so that way we can at least be part of the conversation and explain the way it looks from our end.
Right.
So we're just looking to have a conversation. We're just looking to be helpful. Given the opportunity, we almost always are. But what we're seeing is that often on the other side of the fence, people don't want to, I don't know if it's a feeling of entitlement or other people have talked about this other than myself. I can't think of the way they've described it, but I've been selling things online since 1992, and all I can tell you is that the kind of conversations that I had in those first 10, 15 years and the kind of conversations I've had in the last 8 years, completely different. The attitude, the relationship, very, very different. And it's not in a way that is conducive to civilized people having a good time with each other.
Yeah, and maybe due that the communications aren't face to face anymore.
I think that's a big part of it. I think the anonymity of being able to post something or send an email rather than get on the phone and talk to a human being and work it out. That alone is a huge difference. In fact, there's times where our customer service people are having a very difficult time with somebody. I mean, this happens like once a month, but they say, what do I do? I go, it's easy. Call and see if you can get that person on the phone. And if that doesn't work, have them call me or give me their phone number. Because when they're talking to the CEO, it's going to be a different experience than if they're talking to someone who they think of as someone who is a minimum wage, whatever, who doesn't care, which none of our customer service people are. They get paid very well. They're very smart. They're very helpful. They are wonderful people. But I know that, I think some of it's actually the way what happens when we deal with bigger companies like phone companies. Most people think that the first person you're going to talk to is at the front line and isn't going to be helpful for some reason. They don't know enough. They're not incentivized to be helpful. Because that's certainly our experience when we call phone companies, for example.
Yep.
So I think that maybe you're right. It is jaded. Maybe we've had enough unpleasant experiences with large companies and the structure of large companies that we're extrapolating and assuming that every company is like that, which just couldn't be further from the truth.
Yes, I can imagine that being the case. And this might be a topic for another discussion later, but I think people have seen the rewards of complaining on social media and then all the attention they get and how things end up being in their way.
Yeah, being offended is a currency now.
Yes.
And that's a problem. It becomes this subtle, semi-conscious race to being the one who can claim the most offense. And so that colors our thinking, it colors our experience, it colors our expectations. And again, none of those are great ways to interact with companies that are doing a fine thing. I'm not saying every company deserves respect. Certainly, if you hear me on the phone with some tech support people from some companies, you will know I don't believe that. But there's also times where I'm on the phone with anyway, I was actually just thinking of a time where I was dealing with tech support for our internet, and I was talking to someone who was at the front line, and I actually said, "Look, I'm not trying to be condescending. It's just that you don't know that I know more about this than you do," which is, of course, the definition of condescending. But
right.
It's not. I didn't want to be condescending. It's just that it was obvious that I knew more. They were reading a script and trying to get me to do these things, and I knew what the situation is because I've been dealing with the internet since before there was an internet, and I couldn't get through to someone who could actually help me. And there's no question that whenever I call them, I have this horrible tone in my voice because I'm just assuming it's going to suck. And but you also know, you've had that experience when you get someone on the phone and like after the first word that comes out of their mouth, you just go, "Oh, thank God." And it's someone who'll be able to deal with you, who's willing to listen, who's not going to go through a script. And that's the way we treat everybody because we have no scripts and we do want to help. And we're not, we're not the internet. We're selling shoes. This is not something that's hugely difficult, but it's not as perfect as people would hope that it is.
Right. Well, from what you described, you sound like a company I'd want to do business with.
Well, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate that. And that's one of the things that we try to do in all of our communication is make it clear, here's what we are, here's what we stand for, here's how we want to help, here's why we're doing this. We want people to want to be involved with us because, again, we're trying to change the world. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but we really are. And the only way we can do that is when we have a community, a tribe who just by whatever characteristics a community and tribe has can really start to affect the conversation in the broader culture. And it's not a easy task and it's not something that happens overnight, but it's doable. And there's a reason that we think we can do it. There's a reason we want to do it. And there's a reason people are responding the way that they are to that mission and to the products that support it.
You've left me speechless, Stephen.
Oh, well, I'm assuming that's a good thing, and I'll say thanks. But
Yes. I greatly appreciate the time you spent with me sharing how you've grown your business and your plans and for the future, as well as, our discussion about how people are and how your team treats them. Yeah.
Thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We've been speaking with Stephen Sashen, the co-founder and CEO of Xero Shoes, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing companies or to learn how we can increase your firm's high-ticket sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.